Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation on understanding your credit report with the Harvard Federal Credit Union. My name's Jen Fries. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for the credit union. So just a little housekeeping. I know we're all familiar with Zoom. For this presentation, we cannot see you and we cannot hear you, so go ahead and eat your lunch. If you have background noise, don't worry about it. Everyone is muted because this is in a webinar format. And that means also that if you have questions or something you want us to address, you will need to put it not into the chat. We've disabled the chat, but it's in the Q&A feature. So sometimes you have to go into Zoom on the toolbar, there'll be that more button on the right-hand corner. Sometimes you have to go into more to get to Q&A. But if people want to jump into the Q&A feature now and let us know where you're joining us from, we would love to hear from you and just give you a chance to test out the Q&A. But all of your questions will go into that Q&A and we'll do our best to answer them as we go along. This presentation is being recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. We're Harvard FCU on all the social channels, so you'll receive an email probably by the end of the week with the slides and the recording, so you'll be able to watch it again later if you'd like. And then we also would love it if you could take our workshop survey and let us know how we did. I see we're joined by Jen Weininger from the Longwood campus. Thanks for joining us and thanks for inviting us. We do these presentations in partnership with the Longwood campus office and are here for you and to help you in your journey on financial wellness. So thanks for joining us. And again, I'm Jen Fries. In the background are the other members of my team, Terrence Bazile and Ty Robinson. They'll be posting links in the chat and kind of monitoring the Q&A for me. So at any time if we come out and do a workshop, it might be any one of us. So happy to be here today representing the team. A little bit about the credit union. I know some of you on this call are already members of the credit union, but others might be new to us. A credit union is just like a bank. We offer all the banking services that you might need, like a savings account, checking account, credit card, mortgage, car loan, student loan, those kinds of things. But instead of being owned by shareholders, we are owned by you, the members. We as members are all owners of the credit union. And so because we don't have to generate a profit for someone else, we try to really offer very fair, our best rates that we possibly can for our members. We have a lot of little services like you have free access to ATMs nationwide. If you use an ATM somewhere and they charge you a fee, we will reimburse you for that fee. Once you are a member, you're eligible to become a member if you are a staff person, student, faculty, or staff at any of the Longwood campus schools. So if you're Harvard Medical, Harvard Dental, Harvard School of Public Health, you're eligible to join and you're a member for life if you join the credit union. So you could leave, close your account and come back and later decide you want to use that benefit again. So we are here for you when and if you need us. If you go to our website, we have a page on the website called Thrive. It's to help you live your best money life. And there's a lot of great tools and information on there that will allow you to dive deeper into some of the things that we're going to explore today around credit, because it's a complicated topic and one that you might want to learn more about, or you might want to learn more about some other aspects of financial wellness. So we definitely encourage you to hop on over to Thrive and take a peek over there at some of the, we have, small courses you can do, short courses, blogs, worksheets and workshops, calculators, little videos that take on different topics around financial wellness. So take advantage of those. They can help you improve your money life generally. So this particular presentation, we're going to be covering a pretty dense topic around credit and what it means and how it works. So I know personally, there was a time in my life when I had just finished graduate school, I had a lot of student loans, and I also managed in those couple years right afterwards to rack up some credit card debt. And then I was on a whole journey about paying off my debt. So I know that it's easy to get into those situations, and we're going to cover what credit means, why it's important, and how you can improve your credit score today. So this is kind of the why. Why do we care about credit? We care about credit because most lenders use what's called tiered pricing. And that means that your interest rate that you pay to borrow money is going to vary a lot depending on your credit score. So if you have a very high, very good credit score, say, 740, you're going to pay the lowest interest rate possible for this loan. So this is an example. This is a little bit of an old example, but all the ideas still hold. It's a $25,000 car loan, a 3-year loan. If you have the highest credit score, your monthly payment's going to be around $741. If you have one of the lower or lowest credit scores, by contrast, your monthly payment's going to be around $900. And your additional cost in a year is going to be close to $2,000 a year that the person with the bad credit score is paying versus the person with the best credit score. So over the life of the loan, the person with the 500 point credit score will be paying about $6,000 extra just to get the same thing, the same car. And I don't know about you, but there's a lot of things I'd rather use $6,000 for than to pay to my lender. So we're going to talk with you about how you can improve your credit score so you're more likely to be in that upper tier or as close to it as possible when at the time that you're looking to borrow money. So what is credit? So just to make sure we're all starting on the same page, and I keep throwing out this word credit. Credit is any time you take out a loan now and pay for goods and services over a period of time. That could be a student loan, you're paying for college or grad school. It can be a car loan. It could be a mortgage, a home loan, or a credit card loan. All of those are credit. And what's not credit, it can be a little confusing. What is not credit is if you're using your debit card. So it's confusing because it's a plastic card. It may look like a credit card, but if you're taking money directly out of your bank account using your debit feature, that is not credit, and it doesn't build your credit. It doesn't touch your credit in any way. So who decides about your credit score and how do they decide it? Well, in the United States, we have 3 credit bureaus. They are Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And they gather information that is publicly available about you and me and everybody. And we're going to talk a little bit about what information it is that they gather, but it's everything from where you work, your address, but then a lot about your what you owe and where you owe it and how payments have been happening. So they gather all this information, and from it, each one of them gives you a score. And that is then going to be what lenders get from those credit bureaus in order to decide what to offer you in terms of rates. And it is important to note that not every lender uses that tiered pricing. There are some services we have at the credit union where anyone who qualifies for the loan gets the same price, and then some are tiered. So it really depends on the lender and how they do things, but it is the most common thing that your credit cost of using credit is going to vary based on your credit score. So you can think of a credit score as being almost like a report card because it's going to report your progress over a time period. It's not your whole life, but there's typically an amount of time that is on your credit report, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And what is it going to cover? Well, your credit report is going to cover any debts that you have. If you have credit card debt, if you have an auto loan, home loan, student loan, etc., those will all be on your credit report. It has amounts due and what you paid over a period of time. It will show any open or closed accounts at financial institutions, again, within a time frame. It will show any time that you've had a debt go into collections. So just to back up for a minute and say, well, what does that mean? What is collections? So if I owe $10,000 to my credit card and I have not paid it on time, pretty quickly they might send me one or two letters first or emails, but pretty quickly they're going to turn it over either to in-house collections or to a collections agency. Either way, whether it's in-house or outsourced, once it's turned over to collections, you still owe the debt, but it's going to be collected by that collection agency or that collection arm of the financial institution. And whenever a debt goes into collections, it's going to significantly have a negative impact on your credit history. So they're going to be able to see that you had delinquencies, past due, things that are in collections right now. All those can hurt your ability to get loans in the future. The other thing that's on your credit report is your credit request history. So if you've requested to, if you've applied for a credit card and they've requested your credit history, that will show on there as well. So let's see. So how do you know what's on there, and what are lenders going to see when they, say you're getting ready to go buy something big like a car, or you'd like to be in the market for a house soon, and you want to know what are they going to see on your credit report? I definitely recommend that you pull your own credit report before your lender does, and you learn a little bit about what they're going to see on there. So the way that you get access to your credit report is you go to annualcreditreport.com. Don't go to any of the other places where you have to pay money for it, or it's through there's a lot of scams out there to try to get you to input all your information. The only place you want to go is this place that's authorized by federal law, annualcreditreport.com. You can get free weekly online credit reports. And I will walk you through exactly what you might see on those credit reports so that you can evaluate whether the information is correct or not. So I know Ty, thank you, has put that into the chat, annualcreditreport.com. And we will show you a little bit about what you might find when you get there. So when you go to Annual Credit Report, again, there are those three credit bureaus. You can request from all three of them at once, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, or you could just do one now, one in a few months. Different people have different strategies. They can have slightly different information, so it is good to look at all of them, especially if you're doing something big like going for a mortgage or something like that. Like, see what they have on you. So what does it look like when you get that credit report? Okay. So here, this is old, but it's still very valid about how it's going to look. This person, this is showing their credit card that they have. And this card, they opened the account in 2003. And this was actually pulled in 2017. And you can see that they are up to date and that they are current. So where it says payment status and current, that means that they are up to date and they are not late in any of their payments. So that's great to see. However, this person has a credit limit of $5,500. You can see that up here. That's the most that they can borrow. At one point, they got very close to that. Their high balance was $5,429. So almost all the money that they were allowed to borrow, they were borrowing. And even right now, their current balance is 4216, 4,216. And it's going to depend depending on what other cards that this person has and um, how much credit they have on those. But in general, as a whole, you want your credit card usage to be 30% or less of your limit. So this person is above that, above what you would like to see. So you'd like to see them more in the $2,000, $1,800 range of what they're using on a card that's $5,500 limit. So that's something that's going to potentially impact their credit report. However, they are current, they've been paying, they've never been in delinquency. You can see here that they've had 0 days in delinquency. So that is all good. So just to see one more, another example just for you. This person uh, became delinquent, did not pay their Comcast bill or Xfinity bill. So this is, people are sometimes surprised that utilities are on your credit report, but they can be, particularly if they go into collections. This person had a $310 bill and they didn't pay it, and they didn't pay it for more than 90 days, and it went into collections. So you can see that its payment status was seriously past due. It went to collections department. Um, so when this person pulled their report, they didn't realize that they had this. They had moved. They had a roommate situation. They thought the last bill was paid, and whatever those letters were going to the wrong address or the wrong email at that point. And that can happen a lot, particularly if you've moved recently or have roommates or something like that. So this is a great example of why you can pull the report, because once they found out that this was there, they were able to pay that $310, and that's going to improve their credit report quite a bit. So when they didn't know, they couldn't deal with it. Once they knew and they verified that it was in fact a real debt, then they were able to pay it back. So this is a great reason to check your report as well. Most of the information on your credit report typically stays for about 7 years. That's the vast majority of things you'll see on here on this chart. They last for about 7 years on your credit report. Some things do stay longer. If you have unpaid tax liens, those are going to stay for about 10 years. Chapter 7 bankruptcy is going to stay for about 10 years. If you have closed accounts in good standing, they're going to stay for about 10 years. They could stay longer if they're closed but not in good standing. So if they're closed and you haven't yet paid off or made a payment plan to get those things wrapped up, then they can be longer on your credit report. Your open accounts in good standing are going to be indefinitely on your credit report. So if I open a credit card and I only use it occasionally, so long as I keep it in good standing, it'll stay on there. And having a long, a old account, a creditor that I've had a long relationship with, is going to look better on my credit report. So that is good to know. And then the other thing to know is a lot of people feel like, oh gosh, they think about bankruptcy, that's going to be 10 years on their credit report. Lenders are going to look at a bankruptcy that's 1 or 2 years old differently than one that's 9 years old. So yes, it will still be on there, but it's going to have a little bit of a different impact immediately after, and then a lessening impact over time. So don't despair. You can always improve your credit. And so I want you to come away from this, if nothing else, hopeful about ways that you can improve your credit. Errors on your credit report are actually more common than you might think. It's so if you look at your credit report and you're like, I never had a store card from JCPenney. I'm just pulling an example from my own life. I actually, it didn't on mine, it didn't go to my credit report. I started getting debt collection letters for somebody who had the same full name as mine, but it was not me. But anyway, so you can, sometimes they do show up on your credit report and they're misattributed to you. So if you see something and you're like, that is not my debt, I didn't owe that, there's some doctor that's billing and you never had services from them or whatever it may be. You have different options to correct errors. You can contact the credit bureau directly, and they must get back to you within 30 days in writing. It doesn't mean that they get back with the exact answer, but they must at least acknowledge you and start investigating it. And that's usually the first line of defense, is to contact the credit bureau directly and in writing. And when I had an error, I definitely went to consumer.ftc.gov, as it says here on the slide, to get that sample letter about how to make sure that you're disputing you're raising the error in a way that will flag certain things for the credit bureau, that they are obligated to investigate it. You can also contact your lender. So if you're in the process, say, of getting a mortgage, definitely let your lender know that you've seen something on your credit report that you question, that's not you, that you've disputed it with the credit bureau. And sometimes they might be able to help you with that. You can also contact the lender that is listed on there. So say, Capital One or something is listed on there, and either it's not your account or you did in fact pay them on time, but they listed you as late. You can contact them and they can fix things retroactively. So if you can provide proof, and they may be willing to do that and go back and fix, and there was a late payment on there, but no, that's not true. Or you had a deferral for some reason and they were supposed to honor that. Go and talk to the lender. They can fix it with the credit bureaus retroactively. Whenever you're doing any of these disputes, make sure you write down who you talk to. Ask them how long it will take for them to investigate or to make the fix. Keep records of who you're talking to, what you learned. And that will kind of help you later if you need to go back and prove something about that. Now it's become more and more common that we have situations of fraud or situations when your information may be compromised. Your data can be compromised because of some kind of hack of your credit card company, financial institution, or other places that store your sensitive information. It may become vulnerable also just because somehow information was not sent securely. Never send your social security number or your birth date in an email. That is an unsecure way of delivering that. Usually I just call if somebody needs that, like I have a new employer and they need something, either I do it in person or I call them. There are ways to get secure email addresses if you need to send something in a way that's encrypted. Don't send passwords over email. Don't store them. Don't store all your passwords in a Google Doc, things like that. But if you do find out your information has been compromised, how do you deal with that? So there's basically two levels that we would recommend, and you can decide based on the compromised information and how serious it is, how you want to address it. The first level would be a fraud alert, and you will reach out to each of the credit bureaus and have them place an alert on your account. The alert lasts 1 year. And basically then anytime you wanted to get credit or someone tried to get credit in your name during that time, there has to be like an extra level of security. Maybe you need to provide an extra form of ID or other ways to prove that it is you before credit can be issued. So that's a great first layer of defense to do anytime you think that your information may have been compromised. The next level would be a credit freeze. This one is a little bit more stringent. It would make it so that you cannot get credit in your name, but no one else can either unless you provide either the lender with your PIN number. So you would be given a PIN by the credit bureaus when you contact them to do a credit freeze. And if you don't have the PIN or the identity thieves don't have the PIN, then you can't get credit. So it locks everything down, but it locks it down for you too. So if you then want to get a student loan, you can either go and unfreeze your credit permanently or just for a period of time. You can say unfreeze it for a month, and then provide the PIN to your lender, and then you'll be able to get your loan. So that's definitely a great way to approach things, particularly if you've had a situation where, someone's tried to get a credit card in your name or has in fact done that. Sometimes this is unfortunately even a family member or someone who has access to that social security number, birth date information. Go ahead and set up the credit freeze. It kind of stops that from happening in the future. And it's one extra step that you have to go through as well to get credit. So. Now let's talk about managing your credit score. How do you bring it up? So say you've taken a look at your credit report and you want to bring up your credit score. So I'm going to walk you through some things. But before we do that, I just want to mention that on our website, we have a thing called Learning Lab. It is hosted. You can access it through our website here at harvardfcu.org/greenpath. And it's hosted by a nonprofit partner of ours called GreenPath. And there are these little mini courses. So they're mini courses that may be more relevant to you on credit that you might want to dive into more. One is like in understanding student loan repayments. One is the A1 credit tool, like improving your credit. One is paying down your credit card. So there are these little mini online courses you can do that could deepen your knowledge after this webinar. So we invite you to dive into those. So again, going back to what we learned earlier, if your lender uses tiered pricing, which most do, if you have a high credit score, which is the higher your score, the better it is, you're going to get the lowest or best interest rate. If you have a low score, you're going to get the highest interest rate, being paid the most money for interest just to borrow money. So you don't necessarily have to worry about your credit score all the time. It's much more relevant when you know you're going to be borrowing money. So oh, in a year or so, I'm going to want to be buying a new car, or I'm going to be applying for student loans soon, or I am going to get a mortgage. I hope. I'm hoping to have my first home, and that's when you really want to work on improving your credit. So one thing I did not mention yet, so the things we were talking about your credit report are all about your behaviors. When you pull your credit report, your score is not actually on there. You can typically get your score in a number of ways. Like most credit cards will give you access to your credit score. And if you have a Harvard FCU account, if you go into if you're in online banking and you go into more, you can get your credit score as well, just through your Harvard Credit Union account. But many financial institutions' credit cards will give you access to your score. So take a peek at your score. It's just a number, from 300 to 850. If you look at your number and it's 670 or below, you might want to work on improving your credit score. That's what I would recommend to you. We'll go into some ways that you might want to do that. But first, let's talk about how do they get to that number? Like, how do they get that grade for you? So the two biggest parts of your credit score are your payment history. Did you pay on time? Did you pay the full minimum payment at least? Although you may very well want to pay more than the minimum payment. depending on the kind of debt. So payment history and then the amounts owed. So remember we talked about that person and they had borrowed almost everything they could on their credit card. If they see that, they're going to be a little more leery. And all of this is, you know, like this idea of being graded or whatever, it's upsetting, but if you think about it, if someone was a friend were going to borrow money from you and you found out, well, they have a history of like not paying people back, you might not want to lend money to them. So, I mean, that's basically what the credit score is supposed to provide for businesses. Like, how likely is this person to pay back, pay on time, that kind of thing. So that's why those two amounts owed and payment history are the two biggies in your score. Then the other pieces are new credit. So if they see you're popping up and applying for a lot of cards at once, they might be like, maybe Jen's kind of going through some financial crisis and is like getting a lot of credit right now. That might be a warning sign for them. Your credit mix. So, I mean, the creditors do like to see like a mixture of different kinds of credit. Like you have a credit card and you have a student loan that you've paid or something like that. And then your length of credit history. So the one thing I will say about this is when you're working on your credit, if you can, don't close your account that's the oldest account you have. Like if you have a credit card and you've had it since college or something, and now it's 10, 15 years later, even if that's not your favorite card anymore, maybe you want to keep that open because it shows a length of credit history that can be favorable to your score. So all those things can be bringing up your score. We mostly been talking about FICO scores. There's another, just for you to be aware, there is another kind of credit score called a Vantage score. It's many of the same things that are going to be important to bring up your FICO score, will bring up your Vantage score. It's just another measure. And there are actually even variations within these, like there's different FICO scores depending on what the creditor cares about more. So all this to say that credit is fairly complicated, and this is an example of the Vantage score. I'm not going to go into this today, but if you do one of those little mini courses, there we'll dive more into those. But I think big picture for people to know that if you bring up one of your credit, if you bring up your FICO score, it is also going to bring up your Vantage score. They're very similar in many ways. There's a lot of overlap. So some ways that you can look to improve your credit score. If you haven't ever had credit, there's actually another mini course also about building credit from scratch that could be of interest to you. But if you've not had any credit, or you are have a poor credit score, you may want to get what's called a secured credit card, where there's a certain amount of money that you have set aside that is basically then the credit is given against that, and it can be a building block to building up your credit. So you can ask at the credit union or other places about a secured credit card. And you may also want to look into credit builder loans or debt consolidation loans. Before you do anything debt consolidation, at the end of this presentation, we're going to talk a little bit more about GreenPath, that nonprofit that we have a partnership with. We definitely recommend you do individual counseling with GreenPath before you do a debt consolidation loan, just to make sure it's in your best interest. And we'll give you that link at the end to get that one-on-one financial counseling with GreenPath. So, and then when you're looking for a credit card, what sort of things do you want to look for? How do you know it's a good deal or something that is going to be helpful to you in building your credit score? So one thing that's nice is now all the credit cards are required to give the same information. It used to be before there was the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that credit cards would all give you different, like they kind of highlight the best things about them, but not tell you the other parts. So now they're all required to give you things all in the same kind of table like this, which is great because then you can compare across the board. This is an example of a credit card that's going to give you a 0% interest rate for the first 12 months. And then you're going to be charged a varying rate depending on your credit score. And they're telling you what the minimum is, what the maximum is. So 11.74 minimum, almost 18% maximum based on your score. So if you're doing the 0%, like this is often like a teaser rate, it's called, because you have an idea of paying off your credit cards during that time. You just really want to be sure, one, you're not charging anything new to the card, and two, that you have a plan that mathematically makes sense about paying a certain amount per month to actually get it paid off during that time. Because often, if you read the fine print, often those cards actually, if you don't pay it off during the time, the 0%, they add on the interest for the whole period of time that you had it. Like if you don't have it all paid off within the year, then they're going to charge you retro interest. So you want to definitely make sure you have a plan in place to have it all paid by that 12th month, if that's sort of your plan about how you're getting out of debt. One thing definitely will always want to mention to people is that you don't have to pay any interest on credit cards. If you pay before it is due or on by your due date, the full amount owed, not just the minimum payment, you will not be charged any interest, but it will still build your credit. So that is definitely the best way to use credit cards if you're able to do it. I often will charge something and then just go in and pay it. Or definitely have a reminder for myself about paying the bills on time each month. So those are some of the highlights from what you see in this credit card offer. And then going on, this particular card has no annual fee. Many cards do have an annual fee that you have to pay. So you want to factor that into the cost of basically what this credit card costs you. If you have to pay $100 a year for the card, that's almost like paying more interest. So you want to factor that in. This card has some penalty fees and other fees that you might want to be aware of. So when you're choosing a card, generally you're looking for the lowest APR. And personally, if I'm not in a situation where I'm trying to do that teaser 0% in order to pay off debt over a period of time, if it's more just, this is my regular card, I just look for the lowest interest rate. I personally, the perks and things like that are not as important to me, but depending on your life, you might have different values. Like you might say, oh, I really want these travel points, or something might be important to you that you use a card that, gives you rewards or points or something like that. But also don't get so distracted by the points that you don't keep your eye on the interest rate. Because if you end up paying more for those points than you would have to just buy the airfare, that's not helpful. So, so just keep your eye on that. Look at these bottom line kind of numbers on your credit card offers. You can opt out of credit offers, and this can be helpful if one, you're worried about any like theft of mail from your mailbox or anything like that. If you live in the kind of place where maybe you feel like that's something that you should be concerned about. Or two, you might just feel like it's you just don't want to get that mail and it's not helpful for you and your financial goals. You can go in and opt out from all credit offers, and that will keep those out of your mailbox, whether it be email or real mail. So I mentioned a few times that we were going to talk about our partner GreenPath. So GreenPath is a wonderful resource. You do not need to be a credit union member to use GreenPath. By being on this webinar, but just simply, honestly, by having this link, you could share this link with your friend or partner or whatever. We want to make it that our community has access to good nonprofit, non-predatory financial counseling. So GreenPath is here for you. I know Ty has put into the chat, thank you, Ty, the link for financial counseling through GreenPath. If you want help improving your credit score, making a budget, trying to decide how to address paying back debt, any of those kind of things, saving for your first house, or having other financial issues with housing, like a foreclosure or something like that, GreenPath is a great resource, and we definitely highly recommend that you be in touch with them. And it is available, it's free, and please don't hesitate to take advantage of it. They were actually available also in several different languages and extended business hours. So reach out to GreenPath if at any point you want help with any of those things. Okay. So this is just making you aware that we do have a high yield savings account available at the credit union. It's called Smart Rewards. So if you're looking for a place to put some money that gives you a good amount of interest, Smart Rewards is here for you. We mentioned that we do a lot of education. We have a blog that covers a lot of different topics or subtopics that you might be interested in around credit. And now I know we had some questions in the chat, so let me, in the Q&A. So if you have any questions, go ahead and go into the Q&A. If it's not showing on your Zoom bar, go to more and then Q&A, and you can pop any questions in there. So one person I just had an error and called the company and contacted Credit Sesame. However, it sounds like I should only contact annual credit report to do all three. Is that right? So it is a great idea to call the company. So I'm assuming the company you mean is the company that made the error. So you're calling them and letting them know that there was the error. And then you want to contact each of the credit bureaus. So Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And you can find the way to do that on annualcreditreport.com. That's correct. So there are for-profit services that do that, and Credit Sesame may be one of those. In general, you don't need to pay someone to fix things on your credit report. So we don't recommend using an intermediary and paying someone just because we want to save you money if you can. No, this so this person is asking, this may be a silly question, but it's totally not a silly question. And there are no silly questions, but they're wondering, is it better to have no debt at all, or better to show that you have debt and are working on paying it off? This person, I don't have any debt as I paid off all my loans a while ago. Good for you. That's great. Student loans. And I always pay my credit cards right away once the statement is available. I never have to pay interest. I always pay my bills on time. You probably have an excellent credit score. You can go and check, but it is good to have, you actually have had debt. You've had what's called revolving credit with your credit card. It's just that you haven't paid any interest because you pay it back right away. So this is the ideal credit report. You're probably going to have a very high number. That would be my guess. I would still encourage you to check it on the annualcreditreport.com, and then look on the credit union for your credit score, or with your credit card company or other financial institution. You can usually get your credit score and see. I'm guessing yours is 670 or above, maybe even in the 700s or 800s. So good job. I think that sounds like you're doing the ideal thing. So any other questions? I am not seeing any right now. We do always give a disclaimer. This is not tax, legal, investment advice. If you want individualized advice, obviously go to your tax advisor, your CPA. But if you want individual advice of financial counseling, visit the GreenPath link that we gave out, and they're happy to provide you with individual attention, or help you walk through your own credit situation. This is my contact information, and then the credit unions. I forgot to say, a lot of you may know us as Harvard University Employees Credit Union. We did change our name this year, so I know people are still getting used to the new name. We're Harvard FCU on all the socials now. Harvard FCU on YouTube. So keep in touch with us. If you follow us on socials, you'll see some of these like financial wellness topics come up and like things you can do to address and improve your financial wellness generally. So I think that is all for today. Thank you, everyone, for giving us your time and taking time out of your lunch hour. And I hope that this is a good first step for you on your financial wellness journey. Thanks.